Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Street Angels Show. I guess it's morning out in the Pacific, though. Pacific Standard Time. My name is Mandolyn Reese. I'm known as the Street Angel, and it is officially showtime. Thank you for watching the show, everybody. I've really appreciated everyone's views and comments that I've been getting and encouragement to keep my show going. Just so you know, I've been wearing feathery angel wings and running around public places all over the country and parts of the world, promoting universally humanitarian positive messages for more kindness and unity in the world, just throwing positive vibes out in the world. Like, for example, one of them spread kindness, and for today's show, I like this one, You Deserve Love. But my mission is just to bring more unity to humanity and anti-bullying and just positive vibes, positive vibes. We need more of that in this world. There's not enough promotion of kind messages, I think. So the purpose of my show with this season 4 talk show that I've got going on in partnership with Love Coach Academy is to help improve people's love and romance and relationships and self-love and confidence, self-acceptance, different topics related around to that kind of stuff. So with that being said, I have some really awesome, cool guests today. It's a really lovely married couple. They've been together a very long time. They have a really cute love story. I mean, complicated, but lovely. I mean, what love story isn't got some complications? Love can be a bumpy road out in the world. But so she's the love designer. She's a well-known love coach, and she's received awards. She's been featured on all kinds of TV networks. Her name is Renee Piani, and her husband, Joe Campanella. So I'm going to be bringing them into the studio and interviewing them about all things love. Ready? Hello.
Hi, we're so happy to be here.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. So another cool thing about Renee is she used to be a well-known angel in Los Angeles as well. Can you just briefly touch on that? Kind of tell people how that's a cool connection with me?
When I met you, I was so excited because I had been doing angel visits to all sorts of charities all over Los Angeles from 1988 through probably, I don't even know when, it was a lot of time, about 10 years. And I was named the Angel of the City of Los Angeles, and on the front of the Herald Examiner, which doesn't exist anymore, it's a newspaper, Mayor Bradley named me the official angel of LA. So I, and then when I got into the love industry back in 1992, I felt like I was still doing angel work because love work is angel work. And I actually even had a television show on cable called The Good News Network, which I gave angel awards away to people that did good in the city to encourage people that were single and wanted to meet people, how, the who, what, when, where, and how to get involved in the community. And now I wanted an angel man, and I finally found one. So I was a busy girl, and like we're going to talk about today, how to find love is to take time for it. So I'm so happy that you took over the reign of angeldom. When I met you, I was like, she's the next angel, I was super excited about you doing what you do.
I ran around LA and Hollywood for 4.5 years straight, and I was extremely active. Like you saw,
Yes, you were.
Work and donation drives and volunteer efforts, and really was on fire until I got a little burned out. But we won't go into that right now.
I totally get it. You want to move ever closer?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
We wanted to kind of start with, honestly, maybe we could go through a little bit of your bio as your love coaching and like what you do and your books. Just kind of, I mean, it's a lot. I don't know how we can go through it quick, but let's try.
Well, my life was turned around when I got asked in 1992 to speak at the Learning Annex, which was a company that had authors that had books that had about topics. So I was one of the first consultants with another gentleman at that time. I was doing image makeovers for men. And when I walked into that room, Mandolin, it was like a wake up, like this could be my new business, because I was already an image makeover consultant and a wedding planner. So I had been giving people love advice for many years in a hair salon and working with brides. And when I walked in and asked men where they learned about love and they had no answer, I thought I would like to become the solution to helping men understand the way women think and what we had hoped that our prince, the prince that we've been looking for, the training. So I was giving training, and I wrote a book, my first book, Love Mechanics, and I became the love mechanic, and then did television based on that. And then that, between Good News Network and Men Across America, I was doing television back all the way back then. So I've been doing this for 30 years. And then I pioneered the first speed dating company, which took me all over the country. I did media everywhere. And I got to work with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, of all cultures, all over the country. So I had this view of people from a personal, being in the trenches, seeing their problems, hearing their challenges. So I have come up with a lot of solutions and been coaching for almost 30 years.
That's really
and I've been on lots of TV and radio, and I was so honored that you asked me, because I think one of the things that turns people on the most is when they meet us, and Joel said, and they say, how did you meet? How did you meet? Right. So of all the things that we do, and then I did write a book called Get Real About Love, which is my story of why I didn't get married until I was well into my 40s, which is what we're going to be talking about today. The things that blocked me from my own journey, because I worked so much. Like you were working so much, I'm sure it might have stunted men from wanting to grab onto you because you were flying everywhere. You were over here, you were over there. And my mother used to say, will you sit still long enough to find somebody? And I said, well, Mom, God will send that person in the right time, in the right place. And boy, did that ever happen. So that's sort of how it all went.
Because I did go through a period, especially at the peak of my running around LA, Hollywood, where I was like, how come I can't seem to get a boyfriend? Or it was very challenging, but also I was traveling around quite a bit, literally flying different places. And it's really hard when you're going places for weeks to hold a relationship steady sometimes. But I was I had someone very close to me say, well, maybe your angel wings throw men off and they're just intimidated, or they think you're weird, or different things. And it was really a downer to put that thought in my head, am I too threatening to men? Or I had people say, oh, you're too beautiful to get a guy, you're intimidating. And there's a lot of negative thoughts that if I really focused on them, that it would push away my dreams of having the love that I wanted. But yeah, I would like to hear your love story, and both of you kind of tell it together. I like that aspect, and get some of
I love
Joe's
that as well. Can I say something in regards to the angel thing? When I came here, I was led here, and when you are a spiritual person, some people are going to resonate toward it and some won't, right? So for all the spiritual people, this community in Los Angeles is known as the woo-woo community, And hey, my dog is saying he agrees. Come over here. Anyway, we, it's interesting because I visited hospitals, and my hometown newspaper was putting articles about me being an angel as well. So men that I met felt a little weird about it. But when you have a mission, and when you are a messenger, angels are messengers, and you're a messenger that was trying to bring your message of love. And if a man can't stand up for that, then he's not your man, right? So I used to hold the faith, because my mother said, people might think you're a little crazy, that you're running around in an angel costume. Well, I got to the celebrity level. I went to Washington for a big conference with Madonna and all these. I mean, I've met so many celebrities. I did so much good to bring Good News Network to the planet. So you are a blessed woman, and whoever is in your life, you'll just have to hold the faith, hold that faith that you're going to find somebody that's aligned with who you are. And I believe that that is what I know. That's what I did. And I waited for the right person. And then this magical angel man, I call him my angel man, showed up. So we're excited to share this with you.
How'd you meet Joe?
Well, actually, it's interesting. I actually knew Renee's older brother before I met Renee back, I guess, in my early 20s. And we both were from Wilmington, Delaware. And I remember going, initially when I met Renee, it was just very brief. It was at my cousin's wedding, good grief, back in the early 80s, if you will. And, Bobby, her older brother, and I, who, were friends, we basically said, asked Bobby later, I said, Bobby, you didn't tell me about this one here, Renee. And he said, because she's one of 6 kids. And he said, forget about her, Joe. She's getting married. I said, she's getting married? Yeah, she's been seeing the same guy since she was 14. I said, well, I'm not. And her mother introduced them. And I said, that's the last thing I'm going to do is interfere with something like that, because Bobby was a great friend and I loved him. Speed it forward 20 years later, almost 20 years exactly. And I was going through divorce and I was done with relationships. I mean, absolutely done. In fact, it was my second marriage, and being from a traditional conservative family from back east, the last thing, thinking about was ever getting married again, much less meeting someone. And anyway, I was going, my son and I, who were supposed to be whitewater rafting down the Grand Canyon, he opted to go to the beach in Delaware. Renee, I saw her picture in the paper during a rapid dating session, just briefly before that. And I said, oh, I wonder if she ever married that guy. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I thought about. The next thing you know, Renee shows up kind of serendipitously at this bar at a restaurant, that's 2 hours away from where we lived. And that's how I met her. But
I have to add to this. Okay. At the wedding, his cousin's wedding, she went to high school with me, and I did her hair and design, helped her get everybody ready for the wedding. And I was her maid of honor. Joe came through the line, right? And I was with my high school 8-year relationship. We had just broken up the night before the wedding, but no one knew. So he was in the crowd. I was in the bride's, receiving line. And he came through, and I looked up, and she said, oh, this, and I said, hello. And he said, I'm Joe Campanella. And he grabbed my hand, and look how big his hands are, right? Like, he's got these big hands. So he grabs my hand and he shakes my hand, and I got a jolt of lightning because I'm very intuitive. And I just felt this feeling, this magical feeling. And he was with a woman in line, and I just said hello. And then I turned to his cousin and I said, Mary Ellen, who is that? And she said, that's my cousin, my handsome cousin, Joe. And I said, I'm going to marry him someday. He is my husband. And she's like, but what about Greg? And I said, we'll talk about that later. Right. So that is when I met him. That is how I met him. And then
initially met him. Yeah.
But that night I drove to meet another guy.
Now we're 20 years later now.
Now, 20 years later, the only reason that I was home, and this is the mystical, angelic part of the story, my mother had recently, I met him August 10th, which was 18 years ago.
18 years ago this week.
And yesterday was the 18th anniversary of our first date. So we went out, we had a romantic date last night. But my mother died in May of 2002, very suddenly. And I was flying in for my Aunt Bee's wedding. And my mother had, she was supposed to have a stent put in her heart that was supposed to be quick, easy operation. She was going to be at the wedding. I was flying in to be the oldest flower girl in the history of time for my aunt who was getting married. And my mother died on that Thursday before that weekend. And I spoke to her in the morning, and I said, do you want me to fly in? I was flying in Thursday. Her operation was that Thursday, that morning. I was flying in the morning of her operation. And she goes, you're not flying in early. I have 150 Italians visiting me in the hospital. I'll see you on Thursday when you get back. Well, unfortunately, she died. It was so tragic. So her death led me home. But my aunt had to move her wedding to August. Now, if my mother hadn't passed away and moved the wedding to August, I would have never met Joe. So in my heart and soul, I believe that my mother up above had a hand in this, and that her death, even though it was so tragic, was what woke me up. And this is part of the lessons, is that busy people like you, busy people like me, people like Joe, when we are dating, sometimes we rush into love or we keep love away because we're too busy. And my busyness was making me choose unhealthy relationships because I really wasn't all the way available at that time. And I had my heart broken a few times. So I realized that miracle, even though it was a sad miracle, was what led me to love.
And parallel with that, by the way, because I was traveling around the world working for a company called Oracle, and I wasn't even supposed to be in the same time zone, much less anything else. So for me to be in that space at that time was kind of, very serendipitous.
So what happened was, when I came home, right before I left, I had been dating a gentleman and I was going to bring him to meet my family. And when there was something going on, we had gotten to get to know each other over a 9-month period because I was traveling like you. He couldn't never get a hold of me. So it took a really long time to get to know this guy. And it turned out he lied to me. He was still married and he was dating me and told me that he had never been married, never had kids. He lied the whole time. And I found out right before this happened. So I lost my mother, lost my boyfriend. And so when I went back, somebody said, do you want to meet somebody? You want to get fixed up on a date. And I'm like, I'm free now. Yeah, I will. So the man that I was supposed to meet at the beach where I drove 2 hours was a grade school and high school friend of his. And he was so rude to me on the phone on my way there that I canceled the date with him. And this is the short story. And I ended up being in this town where I used to party when I was a single girl.
Dewey Beach, Delaware.
And there was a bar, and that bar was the coolest place. And I had a feeling, and my cousin thought I was crazy. I said, I have to go to the Rusty Rudder right now because I'm going to see somebody there I know. And he was there.
Wow.
He was there. So I believe that God or angels or my mother were forces of love that brought us together, like the movie Sliding Doors. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a moment in time where they were both on the train, right? And they got to see each other or whatever. If I hadn't have gone there that night at that time, I would have missed him at 9:00 on the deck because his son was too young when the bar turned into a nightclub at 9:00. The restaurant turned into a nightclub and children were not allowed. And he was there with his 17-year-old son.
16 at the time.
So I got to ask, Joe, did it feel like love at first sight when you reconnected?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's
or something like.
Yeah, boy, you're catching me here at kind of an unusual time. I'll never forget when she walked in and her cousin Gina said, "Look, there's Joe Campanella." And I remember them asking where my ex was, and I went, "No more ex." And we connected, locked forearms, and we sat there and we talked. And of course, during that 5-minute interaction, of course, my son was told we had to leave, and we took a picture. Interesting enough,
here it is. I have
a picture that was taken 5 minutes after we met. With one of those little portable cameras that she took to her aunt's wedding.
See, I'd just been at my aunt's canceled wedding in August, right? And then I got asked on the blind date. And here I am. I had the camera from the wedding in my purse. And I had one more picture.
Aww.
And this is the picture of when we met that night.
Aww.
Can you see?
I love that.
And he was grabbing my breast on the side.
Well, that was
he didn't mean to.
No. But anyway, the point being is,
there. No.
but I'll never forget because up until this point, dating, especially as a divorced man with a son, going through a very difficult time, I really was not looking ever for another relationship. And I remember my guards were up. In fact, I remember even, and we'll talk about this in a second, the next day, I remember telling Renee, and you see my hands, I never, ever want to get married again. It's one of those things I was just, I just knew it wasn't for me. But I remember my son saying to me later that night, he said, Dad, I never seen two people look at each other that way.
Aww.
And I said, well, we're just friends. He said, oh, yeah, right, Dad. kind of like, teasing, mocking me. But anyway, I remember the next day we, because we got tossed out, I said, well, listen, what are you doing tomorrow? She said, well, I'm going back to California. I said, just stop by. Can you stop by for a cup of coffee before you leave? And she said, all right, I'll stop by. She stops by the next day. I say, listen, you're cute. Frankly, I love everything that you've done, but frankly, I got to get to know you. I'd like to get to know you the old fashioned way. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, listen, if you're half as nice as your brother, Bobby, I said, if you truly are half as nice, we're going to get along great. I said, and she said, well, how can you do that? You live here, you're going through a divorce, you're going through all these issues, and you live 3,000 miles away.
Where were you living at the time?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was in Delaware.
I was living in Delaware. She was living in LA.
Yeah.
So literally
the country.
Yeah,
okay.
3,000 miles away. And he forgot to mention he was traveling around the world, and he had 3 different women that he was dating. One in Atlanta, one in London, one in San Francisco. Okay. So I said, listen, I'm a love coach. I was a love coach. And I said, I think, if you were somebody telling me this as a client, that I would say you need time to sow your wild oats, and I don't want to be a part of the oats. I am not one of those women that wants to share. So you should date. Now, he was coming to California that week, that Thursday.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was going to schedule it. Yeah. I was going to come fly to San Francisco. But finishing my story, what I was saying is that I just simply wanted to get, I said, listen, if you're half as nice as your brother, it'd be great. I like to get to know you the old-fashioned way. She said, well, what are you talking about? I said, I'd like to take you out on a date. Mm-hmm. She said, well, how can you do that? And I said, you live 3,000 miles away. I said, explain that whole story. So I said, Oracle, the company, would pay me to stay in California because it was a lot cheaper for them to keep me in California than it was to fly back. So because I have to be in LA in San Francisco the following week, how about if I fly out to LA on Thursday, which was the 14th of August at the time, and 18 years ago, and let's go out on a date. And, I'll stay somewhere else. We're going to, we'll do the whole dating thing. And that's what we did. And I went out there and I went, it's going to go slow. And that book, this one here,
I made him read my book.
No, I didn't make it. He signed
it to him.
No, you didn't make me. I said I was going to read this book. And I read this book from one end to the other, on the plane. And I knew when I sat down, I said, this girl, I like who she is. Right. And anyway, it was
like a long distance relationship then, like talking and stuff for a while.
Well, what ended up happening, I wanted to go slow. I didn't want to promise anything. And again, we went slow. We didn't even tell anybody. We didn't tell her brother, Bobby. We didn't tell anybody.
I told a few people.
Okay. But anyway, we went really, really slow. I just said, let's get to know each other very, very slowly. I want to, see what's going on. So through the whole weekend, we spent as much time as possible together, getting to know her. And I remember I flew to San Francisco. I called her the following day. It was a Monday. I said, so what are you doing on this coming Thursday? She said, well, nothing. I said, well, hands up, I'm free. Would you mind if I fly out? We'll come out for another date. And we continued to do that for like a month, nonstop, just, getting to know each other, as I said, the old fashioned way. I said, because listen, I said, if I get to know if your heart is where it is, because, we're all going to get older someday. If your heart is where it is, everything else will fall together.
Now, I wanted to say this, as couples are getting to know each other, one of my most favorite things to share is to get to know how they were raised, right? So I grew up in a very large, loud Italian family. And everybody, anytime I brought a man home, my father would do the Italian interrogation. And I was a little, I said to him, you have no idea how I was brought up. And I myself had been finally healed because I had been studying at Agape Spiritual Center for almost 20 years. Reverend Michael, I don't know if you know who Reverend Michael Beckwith is, but he's been my teacher for 30 years. And right before I met Joe, I was singing in the choir, and I went to church on a Sunday. I was singing, and I was in this white gown, and he and I were in the bathroom at the same time. Reverend Michael and I, came out into the hall from the restrooms, and he looks at me and he calls me Angel. He goes, Angel, I have news for you. I said, what? He goes, your husband's on his way. Because I had done a lot of preparation, which is what I teach, to get ready for love in advance. My place was all hooked up. People would come over and they're like, wow, this place is so romantic. And I'd say, I'm getting ready for love, baby. And I was teaching that, right? So I had really done a lot of healing from infidelity, weaved through my generations of my family and fear of being hurt because I had been hurt by some players out here. But anyway, I remember him saying, your husband is on his way. So he's running into the church because he's late. And I go, don't leave me without knowing when, where. Like, I was so excited. So it turns out I met Joe literally about a month later. And when he came to town, I said, I want you to meet some of my friends. I want you to go to my church. I want you to come to a rapid dating. And then, of course, I was on Ion LA, some pajama party, doing interviews. And I said, I don't have a normal life. I don't have a normal life. So I want to show it to you first before we get involved. And for me to meet your family and for you to meet my family. So that's what we did during that period of time. And it was so cool because he fit right into my big family because he comes from 6 kids in his family as well.
Cool.
So
I got to interject, like the synchronicity of you mentioning Michael Beckwith as well. I happened to meet him on my very first angel red carpet that I got snuck into when I started my angel mission. And he was the first big contact, like I met getting snuck into a carpet. And I wonder if he remembers me. I met him a few times and I always had my big wings on. And I got some pictures of him. So tonight, he's actually being featured in a Global Peace Tribe. Tonight being August 15th, in case people watch the replay. But Saturday night tonight, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, I believe it's online. Michael Beckwith is going to be doing an address on global peace. And I'm going to be featured in this show, talking about light touch healing and stuff like that. So interesting synchronicities happening.
Small world.
Well, I've been involved with Agape since the beginning, since 1988 when I got here. I met Reverend Michael, and there was about 65 people there, and I was just totally into it and still am. We're very involved. Unfortunately, we can't go there right now. But I've done lots of fundraising. We have together, and we love Reverend Michael and Agape. So anybody that's looking for that spiritual, you can go Agape Live. But good for you. That's so cool. Tell the Rev that you know Angel Renee, and he'll say, "Oh my God," Yeah, he's super cool. And then, but what happened was I brought Joe there, like to church. And he after the service, he came out, and it had only been, I think, the second week he was there. I brought him, and he walks over and he whispers in my ear and he goes, "That's him. That's him." And I got goosebumps all over, man. He married us in LA. We had 2 weddings, one in Delaware, which was the really big 2 receptions. We had 1 wedding. Well, he did to give us a wedding blessing. So we had 2 wedding receptions and 2 blessings. And the minister that married us was a woman who was Reverend Luzette, who her husband wrote the foreword to my book. Dr. Robert McDonald and Luzette are one of the top NLP teachers around the world. They teach globally around the world. Oh, look at that. There's the Rev. Hi, Reverend Michael. Tell him that I said hi.
That was my first red carpet event, and that was me meeting him. And when I first started my angel stuff. Speaking of which, my 8-year anniversary is August 17th.
God bless you. That's so awesome.
That's a special month.
See, my old sisters were so gigantic. Like, I came out like with a bang in Hollywood. I had these gigantic wings. These wings dragged on the ground. And
too.
Those were humongous, and I had to downsize once I realized, like, the way that I wanted to show the picture, like the way LA is and some of these events, I really couldn't be going around with gigantic wings and gigantic posters too much. I had to come up with creative ways to sneak into places, and I wanted to show that. So I got to go. Renee would host these beautiful toy drives for charities, and I got to be a sponsor at one. And I just wanted to show a few of these pictures that kind of take us through a little memory lane. There I was. Are y'all seeing this okay?
I didn't see it.
Right.
I remember you being there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
really great party and just such a fun time and really memorable. It was great to be a part of that charity event and raise toys for which organization was it?
The Los Angeles Police Department in Venice, they have a toy drive every year, and they have a big tent with Santa and all the underprivileged families in this area, in the Culver City area, received all the toys. So they have a big tent, and it is so much fun. And I've been doing this event, gosh, like what, 20 years, I think it's been, before even Joe was involved, but he
With
got way involved.
different organizations,
We've
but
done it for a lot of different organizations every year.
but the last several years have been the police department.
LAPD.
So I wanted to shift gears. Today's topic was really about tips for finding your soulmate. So I wanted to shift gears into where we start sharing advice and helping people with what do you recommend for people to find their love soulmate or finding love, like, and that kind of stuff. Like, where do you want to start?
Well, Joe, well, I'll start because first of all, when people contact me or you or these coaches around the world, usually it's because they're in a situation, right? So people say, my heart is broken, or my relationships don't seem to be starting out. They don't, to panning out into going long distance. So I always tell people, where's my little heart? Anybody that works with me, I have two hearts here. This is my most beautiful heart. I collect hearts. This is a heart that kind of represents most people. They get a little damaged, right? But underneath there's all these sparkles. Look at this. This is a pyrolite heart, and it has two sides. This is more of a smooth side, and this is the side that occasionally gets a little hurt, right? So when you examine your own heart and really go deep into your patterns of how you were wired from childhood, and who your imprints and role models were, right? So as a young woman, and if you get a chance, you might want to pick up Get Real About Love. My role models were a little crazy because I'm Italian, and in Italian cultures, there's so much love. Everybody's love, love, love. But through the generations, there was a lot of infidelity, a lot of divorce. And I went back through my genealogy and my imprints from my family and did a lot of investigation as to why the women used to warn me, do not trust men. So all people have a mantra based on their upbringing and the way that they were raised. And mine was guard my heart, until I did a lot of the work that I teach, right? So I went back to school and I interviewed all the love experts, and I was led to my work. And if anybody's interested, maybe Amanda, please put up my TEDx link. I did a TEDx about it called The Power of Your Love Lineage, right? And that correlated with Get Real About Love. So this book is my story of what led me. It's like what led you to be an angel, right? I was led to be an angel to give the messages so that other people wouldn't have to suffer from some of the same things I had to. And it really is more of my life mission to take this work to heal people around the world. And I've been doing Reiki and healing, and I do readings and heart healing. And depending on the level, like I'm sure as you coach people, you see people that are open and then some people that are more spiritual. So wherever they are, I can meet them, when I work with people. But the most important thing is to make it. Oh, there's the TEDx. And maybe you could put the link up for me, Amanda, because I think everybody would really enjoy it, because it shows you how you were imprinted as a young girl or a young boy. The imprints are passed through the generations of families. And if you don't heal those things, sometimes they keep going through the generations. So I have healed mine, helped my whole family and thousands of clients take a look at their heart. And I think that's number one. And then I tell people to take a look at themselves. Or are you marketing yourself and brand? Like everybody right now, we're home, it's COVID, right? We're in the COVID time. I've been doing so much coaching and teaching people how to flirt online because we're meeting face to face online. There's a company called Teleport that I'm working with doing rapid dating events in case anyone's interested. Amanda, you can put the link down. But more importantly, you have to take a look at yourself and say, is your heart in the space where you would want to date yourself right now? Is your heart open? Is it blocked? Would you marry yourself, or are you the person that you want to attract? So I help people to redo their profiles and the colors that they wear and the way that they present themselves, not only verbally, but you also have to look at the mind, what your mindset. And a lot of people, as you know, have old passengers. I call it a passenger remaining in their vehicle, where they're holding on to pain that happened to them sometimes from 10 years ago, even way in the past, and they don't have the openness to allow love in. So those are the main things that I ask people to address. So you have to eliminate those passengers, heal them, learn from them, and I teach people how to do that. Also, Joe and I believe that taking it slow is the best way to go. And what would you say? I mean, I wanted him to add this because there's so many people. We talked about this yesterday, Madeline, that there's half of the world's divorced, right? And people will say to me, well, I have to be with somebody that's never had pain, never got divorced, never done. I'm like, well, good luck finding that, right? Especially if you're 35 and up. Most of the people that you're going to meet have either been in love or married, and sometimes they might have roadblocks to love. So I'd like Joe to say, from the male perspective, you know, when people are going through divorce, like sometimes they think, I'm never going to do this again. Like he said, I will never, ever do this again. And I was like, I got my work cut out for me, you know?
Well, I think, I think there's a couple things. One is, I at least me personally, I like being with one person. I mean, and frankly, I like being married. And so I knew the first two relationships, the first two marriages, you know, I certainly learned from them. I certainly made mistakes, as we all do. The key thing, as Renee was pointing out, is you learn from these mistakes and you learn from, you know, and you try to bring them forward. So there was anything the first thing I learned was I needed to take this relationship slow. And as I mentioned earlier, if I would get to know your heart, if your heart is half as nice as your brother, we're going to get along great. And we did go slow, because I believe if you focus on the heart and less on the exterior of the person, which is really difficult because, you know, it's easy when you're attracted to someone to want to be with them. Okay. So take a step back, really go slow. As Renee pointed out, there's a lot of things that you can learn from your past by going slow, and in doing that, you do learn about yourself. And I had to learn and reflect on my own behavior, my own self, as well as learn from other relationships. And it was really helpful. And so when we got to know each other little by little, I never had said this before. And to this day, I could say that emphatically, that I knew within 3 weeks, I truly met my soulmate.
Aww.
Truly. I never, and I was like, oh, that's hokey. No.
I have to ask, how long until you actually got to? I can see how living so far apart can help you move slow because you're not physically tempted to be, you know, intimate or whatever. So how long until you actually came together and started to be in union, like to be together, live together, get married? Like, was that?
We took a. Well, that's a good question. And so, first of all, to answer the question, I would fly back every weekend. You know, it was the kitchen. The thing, I would fly back every weekend,
every other weekend,
in the beginning, because I had my son. I wanted to take, but at the time, remember, he's 17 now. He's wanting to be on his own, and anyway, long story short, we knew within the first month or two, but 4 or 5 months later, you know, there's a little bit of a story behind this. It's right after Christmas, after the holidays, we're still going back and forth. I was still living in Delaware, staying at my brother's house, going through this divorce. And in January 2nd, I get this call from one of the, you know, top directors at Oracle and said, Joe, we're closing down the department. You lost your job along with everyone else. I went, oh, okay. Now I'm unemployed.
And
now I'm in Delaware. I'm laughing because I couldn't believe it. And I remember I was working, in relation, I had managed partner relationships for Oracle at the time. And I said, well, I remember talking to the executive and I said, well, listen, I actually know healthcare really well and healthcare information technology. He said, well, actually, we're hiring. So I said, well, who's the hiring manager? And he said, well, the hiring manager is based out of Seattle. So I remember giving the guy, and they said, there's 2 positions open, one in the West, and one in Boston. I went, not Boston, not going there, too cold, too far away from Renee. Because remember, now this is 4 or 5 months later in the relationship. So we have one in the West Coast in LA. I said, oh, interesting.
Perfect.
Now,
Couldn't believe it.
Wait, it gets interesting. So I'm sitting there and I said, okay, well, tell me where about, because I'm thinking LA is huge, and it is. And Renee lived in Santa Monica at the time. He said, well, there's one in Santa Monica at 6 in Arizona. And I said, holding the phone, I said, Renee, how far is 6 in Arizona for you? She said, you can walk there.
7 blocks from my house. I mean, it was like an ordained, like mystical thing. But I have to say something before this, right? Wow. We had taken it slow. And then that Christmas, my father was so distraught. This is when I knew he was my husband. He's telling his side, right? That Christmas of December, my father had a massive heart attack. So I just lost my mom in May. My father was obese. He had this massive, he had to have a 5 bypass surgery. He had a 10% chance of living. Wow. So I get the same phone call, Dad probably is going to die tomorrow. You have to come home right away. So I flew in. He was in San Francisco. We met right in the middle. And I never forget that night. My father had tubes and the priest was there. And I walked into the hospital. Right, and the priest, it was like midnight. I got in really late. And I thought, oh my God, I've never seen him before his surgery. And my mother had visited me and told him a message. Anyway, I get to the hospital and this Italian, it was like a movie. My father looks like a Guido from one of the, mafia movies. He's laying there and he goes, Renee's here with her boyfriend, Joey. And I said, and he's got tubes. He could barely talk. I said, don't talk. I said, Mom gave me a message. And I said, and I need to talk to you. So everybody left the room. And my mother specifically said, rub his head and tell him, I have forgiven you for some of the things in the past. When will you open your heart to forgive yourself? And he cried anyway. And then I said, Daddy, I said, I need you to know that Joe is my husband and I am the only daughter and the only child that you husband yet. I said, my Joe is the one I want to marry. And he was a caterer, an Italian caterer. And those were the weddings I used to help the brides with because we kind of worked together. Right. And I said, so do you think that you could stay alive to walk me, your last child who has never been married, up the aisle? Aww. And his eyes got real big and he goes, you really think this is him, huh? Aww. And I said, yes, I do. So I said, please, if you want to die, you can wait, marry me off, and then you can die if you want. Because he had said, I'm dying. That's it. I'm done. And I said, no, you're not done. You have to stay alive. Right. So anyway, he gave me a high five. He stayed alive. But that week, he was so big. When he got out of the hospital, he had a cut and he could hardly walk. Joe bathed him, carried him, took him to the restroom because nobody could lift him except for Joe. So we had walkie-talkies and he'd go, hey, Joe, got to come down and get me and give me a shower. He took care of my father. He got his meds ready and we stayed there. And during the 2-week period of him really being hard to handle, right? And my sister was there.
Right up through Christmas.
And it was right up through Christmas. And he came, and then there was a flood. It's this really beautiful story, actually. And then we fed the homeless on Christmas Eve together in the rain. And I remember him, he was leading the Salvation Army feeding program for 18 years in Delaware?
No, about 15? About 10 years.
10 years. He was leading the homeless feeding program. And so we were together doing that in the rain. And I remember looking at him as he was leading the teams out of this garage in the rain. We're all wet. And I just went, oh my God, this is my angel, my angel. So I cried and it was like, I said, and I went back and I said, Daddy, you have to stay alive because you got to give us away. Now he lived, what, another 10 years, right? How many? Yeah.
But anyway, so the point being is that after all that, we come back January 2nd. We just arrived, like, right after the New Year's, and I get this notice from Oracle about that. Then I find out that the office that they have, that they want me to work out of, is literally walking distance away. So, of course, I said yes. Within, I said, but you got to let me go for a month, let me get moved out. And I moved out to California. And so at that point, we started living together. So that was like February, beginning of February is when I officially moved out to California.
It was a hell of a year, I got to tell you.
16, 17 years ago, I guess.
It was magical how each step happened without a push. It wasn't like we were forced to do it. It was like ordained for it to happen. And I always tell people that anything is possible. Anything is possible when you believe.
Yeah, I really got to say, it's a very inspiring story, especially, this happening for you in your 40s. A lot of people start over in their 40s. A lot of people going through divorce and not wanting to give up on love and not sure they can do it again. Their heart's broken, all the wounds and damage. And so it's like, I shed a few tears, like, while y'all telling me that beautiful story, like knowing you feeling like you just knew you met your angel guy. And so it's just like really inspiring and helpful. And I want to ask, do y'all ever have any issues like with dealing with jealousy? You're both attractive people. Like, I mean, do you ever have weird things happen that like try to pull you apart, or do you have issues around that? How do you deal with it?
I think early on we both said to each other, it's about trust. And so, you're a good looking woman, I'm not an ugly guy. If we really want to be with someone else, we could do it. I think we're both beyond that. I'm tired. I'm not into playing games. I'm very straightforward. I said, this is what's up. I'm way too busy to want to go to bars and play games in relationships.
Sneak around and lie. So lying is not an option. We get married every year. That's one thing to keep our marriage sacred. And it's, I have these big events and women walk in and they usually walk up to me and they're like, "Who's that guy over there?" And I go, "Well, that's my husband." And they'd go, "Oh my God, he's so handsome. I was hoping he was single." And I said, "Well, that's what I can help you to do, is find real love." And I said, "You can flirt with him, but he comes home with me, So I teach flirting. I'm a very out there person. Many of the men that I dated in my past, especially Italian men, were very jealous and they did not like my personality, my openness. I'm a very open person and I'm very psychic. So when I see people, I get messages and I'll walk up to them and say, and when he first met me, I said, "This is who I am." I think it's about being confident in yourself. And I always say to him, if there's ever a time that you ever want to do something, just get real about love with me and tell me, because that means that we're having conflicts. And yes, there's been challenges over the last years. We lost 3 parents. My dad died. His parents died. I think the biggest challenges that we've had is the stress of sometimes I'm working a lot or he's working a lot. And I wrote an article about it. And Amanda, you could put the link on there. It's like how couples can stay in sync, right? We get out of sync sometimes. And now the lawn guy is coming. We get out of sync sometimes. So this is what I use and we use to remind each other if we're out of sync. This heart, or I have about 100 hearts around the house that clients give to me. I collect them, and angels. Of course, I have boxes of angels and pictures. And so anyway, these hearts are a representation, and I am so sorry about this noise, of honey, let's have a heart-to-heart talk. Honey, let's, and if we ever have conflicts, I'll leave and cool down, or he'll leave and cool down. But normally it's about time. It's about time. He works out every other day for a couple hours. He's a super jock. And sometimes I'll have clients coming in and our timing is off, So we always make up for it later. We talk about it. We really rarely fight.
But I think to answer your to answer your earlier question about jealousy, I think to Renee's point, you got to be you have to be happy within yourself. And, I think you kind of state that up front, and I accept her for her, and she accepts me for me. Yes, she's out there, yes, she's often going out to guys doing makeovers in their homes, pulling out underwear out of their drawers. So, it's like
their lives,
you can't, or she's on TV one day. In fact, I remember, Mario Lopez and her giving a big hug and a kiss when I first met them. I said, okay, whatever, it's like, you just kind of roll with it. And I don't sit there. I don't want to change her at all. I want her to be who she is, and she accepts me for who I am. And if there's some, challenges or questions, then we sit down and we talk about it, or we joke about it. But usually
he is totally clueless when women flirt with him. Like, I'll be at an event and this woman will come over and she'll be like, hi. And she's rubbing herself up against him. And I'm like, and then he'll go, I can see him go. And then he points at me and I wave, there's been so many red carpets where celebrities would be coming through, right? At this, what was that? I forget what it was called. It was this big women's conference, and I was doing Braveheart.
Yeah.
And what was her name? We had a big stage with all these famous people coming through. The one that was married to Trump. What's her name? Again, his first wife.
Ivanka?
No, not Ivanka.
The one before her. Anyway, beautiful woman. Joe, they had male escorts, and I got Braveheart, all these handsome men to escort the celebrities from their limos through the lobby so that people wouldn't, bother them, right? So when she got out of the car, and I can't remember her name. Anyway, she was a model and she's beautiful, and she got out of the car, and Joe grabbed, got his hand to get her out of the car, and I saw her give him that look that women give when they're interested. And she got these sparkly eyes, right? And I'm watching it from across the room. And then I don't know what he said, but he went and he pointed at me, and he was walking her through. And I saw her look of interest and then her look of disappointment when he said he was married. Yeah, but because I knew that she was interested. And this has happened to me hundreds of times with him, and it happens with me, and he's there, and we laugh and we use it to keep it spicy. I'm like, hey, look at all these women that think you're so hot. And it is true. And it's fun. It makes it fun.
Do you said you get married once a year, like you have a little ceremony or what?
Every year.
Well, it's on our anniversary, which is on September 4th, and we kept our vows from her that we wrote for each other on our wedding, which is now, I guess it'd be 15 years. It'll be 15 years this September 4th.
So romantic.
Yeah, and so but we make a point because it's a kind of a reminder to each other why we got married to begin with.
We recommit to the commitment every year, and then we get our original vows, and they're all folded up, and I had written them the night before the wedding, mine, and he wrote his, and then we adjust them to that year. And I always get a chance to buy a new white dress. That's a good excuse for me to shop, which I love to do. And I buy a new white dress every year, and we go either to Malibu. We usually go to Moon Shadows after. So we go to a park. There was a park, Palisades Park, when I lived in Santa Monica, and I used to pray. There's a really pretty green trellis area if you ever go through Santa Monica. And I used to go to this one area and go, God, I'm ready. I would, make my proclamations to God and the universe and say, I'm ready for my husband. So when we decided to do our vows, we go there every year to that spot.
It overlooks the bluffs and overlooks Malibu, the ocean, the beaches. It's a beautiful view.
So that's what we do every year. So I'm really into sacred love, having sacredness in our relationship.
What could you give for advice for people who struggle with trust issues, like trying to trust again? Like, is there anything you could share about that? Because that's something I struggle with, like not wanting to trust men either after everything I've been through and everything I have seen.
Well, on the back of my book, it says, open your heart to trust and love again. Normally, I believe that trust issues come from early on imprints, and that is what my TEDx is about. So I'd love for you to read it. Seeing and hearing things from parents or getting hurt when you're young maybe a boy dumped you when you were in grade school, or, dismissed you. There must have been a defining, it's called a limiting decision in NLP, right? Because I'm an NLP practitioner. And so when I ask people, I make them do a certain work that allows me to see a pattern that they may have. So when you look at that, trust is one of the biggest keys to love. If you don't have trust, a lot of it is self-doubt. Some of it's self-doubt from having heart pain. So I take people through a healing process in my coaching to find out what that decision was. Mine was, I will never trust a man and I will never have children. I will become strong and I will take care of myself. So I wasn't allowing men to be the masculine. I was kind of more on the masculine side and had a wall. And I find that thousands and thousands of people have that. So it's a pretty deep dive into looking into their heart.
Would you mind gifting me one of those sessions, and I can talk about it and refer people to you as?
Absolutely, I would. I think it would really be very beneficial to you, because there's always, and as you were talking about earlier, people in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they're dating people that are back in the game, right? So if you meet somebody and you've done healing and they're still down here, then you're carrying them through a healing process.
Oh, I know that feeling, and it's extremely challenging, especially like with as much work I have done on myself, like 7-8 years worth of lots of healing work. Like, I'm a huge proponent of that. Like, I seek it out. I'm like, I will try this, I'll energy work, counseling, therapy, I'll try it. And like to try to date guys who seem like their level of consciousness is way down here, and they don't have any interest in healing, or they are scared of it, or have every excuse in the book not to do it. It's like a kind of a turnoff for me, because I'm like, I need you to come up to my level of understanding and awareness, and at least try to work on yourself so that we can get along, or whatever the thing may be. But I've encountered that where I'm just like, please also be as enthusiastic about self-work as I am, because I've done a lot. But we got to wrap up the show. We're getting on to our 1 hour, but really quick, I just want to say, is there anything you want to share about your type of coaching or your offerings to the audience? Like, what if people contact you, or put up your website, reneepiani.com?
Yes, I do. I have classes. I have classes for people that, if they don't want to do one-on-ones, then they can get me through classes, and you'll get a lot of the same work. Like, Get Ready for Love. I have a 5-week class for women. I have Secrets into the Minds of Women for Men every month, and I have flirting classes. But I personally, I think being a healer of the heart is what I am. And I advise people that if they're interested in working with me, to go to my coaching page, because I have a 90-minute session. Because if somebody's going to work with you deeply, right, you have to feel that they're the right person.
Right.
And you need to find role models that have what you want, So as, my whole life, I would say to my parents, they would say, why are you waiting so long to get married? I said, I want to be one of those couples that when people see us, they go, wow, I wish I could have that. And, we're not perfect in every way, but our love is very deep, and people come up and say, I want that love. So I feel very proud, and I have these panels. Men need to be aware. If the choice of your life partner is one of the biggest decisions of your life, more men now, thank God, are coming to the table. But you got to remember, the men that are brought up by, like, women that are dating men in their 60s, right, 50s, 60s, 70s, they were brought up by old school moms, right? The younger guys are more hip about what's going on in the world, and they're looking into it. But if you are planning and want a deep relationship, I would highly advise for you to read this, because it makes you look at every area, every person, like you, me, he, everybody's in a phase. And if you meet somebody and they're not in the same phase, the timing could be off. And what people do is they keep getting involved to heal people. Like, people like us, we're givers and we like to heal people. You have to slow down the process and find out where a person's at. So that's what I do, and it's very personal. And then I take people shopping. I have photographers. I have a whole team of people that can help you to really remarket and reinvent the way you're presenting your heart, the way you're presenting yourself. And some of the women out there need to lighten up, because the men of the world are opening their hearts to love in a deeper way during Corona. And people are really going, this is taking us to a deeper level of love. So I invite all of you, if you want, you can go to reneepiani.com. I'm giving free gifts and consultations to people for free for 20 minutes to see if I might be a fit. And I'm happy to help you as well. And I really thank you for, Joe, thank you for sharing from your heart. He's so awesome. And do you have anything to say?
No, just my feeling is that trust and love. What I thought would never ever exist again certainly has existed, and I am so glad. I mean, what a difference in my life just by trusting in love and taking it slow and getting to know her heart over time, as opposed to doing it the old-fashioned way or the traditional way, which is you're physical and then later figure it out.
Not a good idea.
No.
Not a good idea.
A lot of lessons there.
Anybody out there, thank you for sharing our love story and my work with the world. This is what I've been doing as an angel. It's still really being a messenger, just like yourself. So I'm proud of you. And I'm really grateful that you're here sharing our story with the world, because people do need to get real about love and be honest with their heart, so that they can change and make a new plan of action to vision love and then not give up on your dream. And sometimes you get impatient. And guys out there, if you read this book, you're going to understand the way women have been wired, and you're going to have more luck, because you're going to be able to connect with women deeper, and they're going to think you're the most amazing person because you've done inner work. Women are like begging for men to do inner work. So I'm here to help. And I love working with men. They're really sensitive.
I'd like to add that Renee Piani was listed in the Wall Street Journal as one of the 8 resources for singles in America, as well as winner of Best International Dating Coach at the iDate conference. So it's really a pleasure. Thank you for your time to come on my show and your support for my angel mission, and just being a lovely couple and being a lovely person, Renee. I've really enjoyed having your friendship in my life. And I just want to add one last thing. I like to do this at the end of my show really briefly, and I'll bring you back in a moment. But I just want to say, if anyone would like to try my Angel CD, it's a deeply healing meditation and sound bath that walks you through each of your energy center chakras to clear out old wounds and baggage and help you to heal from your past. People have said it. They've cleared some of their childhood traumas and refill with the Holy Spirit so you feel better. And so it's available on my website. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope this show helped you feel more inspired and trusting in love, and getting to see some soulmates in live action who have a successful thing going on. So thank you, Renee and Joe, and all to my audience members. Everybody, God bless.
God bless you, sweetheart. Keep those wings flying and trust and love for sure.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
God bless you.
Bye-bye now.